Greetings and welcome to the Halloween edition of the Sliders Review. And I'm here today to talk to you about Totally Killer, the 2023 Amazon Prime movie. This movie was created by that of Jason Blum of Blumhouse TV banner. And this movie is awesome. It's hilarious and stuff. It's a slasher comedy movie. And I remember a year ago, I saw actually it wasn't even really a year ago, almost a year ago. I saw like the trailer and I'm just like kind of like, I don't care. And then after that, I forgot all about it, right? I knew it dealt with like a slasher movie. I knew it was a comedy. I knew it dealt with time travel. I just forgot how they time traveled and stuff. And so every time I have Amazon Prime, this stuff always pops up. And this movie is constantly popping up. And I'm all like, it has Kierman Shipka in it. Like, I'm curious to know, how this movie is. But I just don't feel like watching it. And I'm just like, how fun could a slasher comedy that deals with time travel be? Like, you know what I'm saying? And so I kept passing it up. And I kept passing it up. And so finally, it just kept popping up on my menu. I'm like, I might as well just watch it. Why not? And I'm so glad I did. I should never have slept on this movie. And I urge you not to sleep on it as well, because it is really hilarious. And it's pretty clever and innovative. However, there has already been a slasher movie that deals with time travel. I just forget the name of it. And it came out a couple of years before this movie. And so this is sadly a streaming movie. So most likely it'll never be on DVD, especially with that of Amazon Prime. And so this actually came out some indie festival months before it came out on Amazon Prime. Every time I keep seeing this on Amazon Prime, the lettering font and the color is exactly the same as some movie called My Best Friend Exorcism. But those movies are nothing related and they're made from two completely different studios. I haven't seen the Exorcism one yet. I'm trying to watch it now, but it's kind of boring in the opener and stuff like that. But anyway, this movie is so cool, man. With some tweaks here and there, it could have had a theatrical release. Some stronger kills, some zany comedy and stuff like that. I mean, it's pretty bonkers as it is, but it could have been even more, you know what I'm saying? And so it probably would have done maybe open at number 5 or 6, something like that, maybe 7 at the most. But yeah, it would have been a really something different to see, because this movie is basically Back to the Future. I'm not even kidding. It is literally Back to the Future, but with more comedy and a slasher motif and stuff. And they even make references to that of Back to the Future. And also the rules of time travel similar to Back to the Future. However, one of the rules I don't like, the rules I do like is, if you go back in time and you change stuff, it will have a ripple effect and change things in the future. I love that rule in time travel. However, this one rule I do not like. So the the main character in here, she's all like, well, what happened if I change the past to where I'm never born in the future? Will I just disappear or something? In Back to the Future with the photograph and stuff like that. Because they even have a photograph in this movie, because the time travel device is one of those picture booth type things, so you see the card, the pictures, but that has nothing to do with the movie, the picture thing. And so the person who created Time Machine is like, no, you will still exist if you travel back to your present day in the future. It's just that, since you're young and everything, you live with your parents, then you pretty much just gonna be homeless and stuff. But you will definitely exist. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I want the eyes. See, the whole thing of Back to the Future is the stakes, man. He had to get his parents to kiss so they could date and hook up and make him in the future. And you were just like really rooting for him to like succeed and everything because you kept seeing him fade away. That was like the beauty, well, one of the beauties of that movie that kept you on the edge of your seat. Here, they're just like, nah, screw that. I'm like, nah, man, don't do that. But of course, if they would have done that, then it would have been a complete rip of like Back to the Future. But whatever. Now, it doesn't copy Back to the Future entirely because this is a slasher movie and there is a completely different motive and stuff like that. It's just somebody builds a time machine, they go back in time to try to prevent something. And and the main character interacts with her parents when they're younger, and they're completely different than what she expects them to be. And she's a little disappointed in like one of them and stuff. Now, and I cannot pronounce her name, but it was directed by or written by like Nana Taka Khan. It was either written or directed. I can't remember which. It was probably directed. I can't pronounce her name, but yeah, Nana Taka Khan. She's best known for creating like or like Fresh Off the Boat, the Bee in Apartment 23 and some other stuff. And she mostly works in like cartoon, which explains the opener and why it looked the way it did. Because like, okay, the movie deals with a killer, and so they do a flashback of like all the kills in the podcast and stuff like that, right? And they'll show like the girl dead on like the ground, but then they will flash, and then all of a sudden the entire atmosphere will turn into like a toy set. So you have like a toy neighborhood, like a miniature toy neighborhood, and then you have like a little teeny tiny toy being the victim laying on the ground, and it flash back to reality. Why does it do that? I have no idea. It doesn't serve no purpose. But when you know she worked in cartoons, then that kind of explains why. Ironically, I didn't even know this. She is the brother, oh no, sister, my bad. Her brother is that one con dude who works in the WWE. I think it's, what's that one dude name? Okay, there are two cons in wrestling. One is Tony Khan and one is Nick Khan. Whichever one works in WWE and not AEW is the one I'm talking about. I think it's Nick Khan, I think. But yeah, I had no idea, man. Like those two were like related and everything. Now, is this movie perfect? No. Like I said before, the kills could have been more and bigger and more elaborate. And the humor, while funny in this movie, is low-key funny, and it's not like outrageous funny, which is what it really needs to be if it was going to be theatrical. Also, another problem I have with this is the way they portrayed their diversity. I'm glad the movie's diverse, but I call BS Hollywood on it because it's like a check mark system, and it's another BS reason to it. I'm just kind of like, oh, your movie's supposed to be so progressive and everything, but like, what is this little like error I see in the movie? And I'll get to that much later and stuff. So the movie deals in that of the present day with a girl named Jamie, played by Kiernan Shipka. And so of course she's best known for Mad Men, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. And so she's a typical, well, she appears to be a typical angsty little teenager who doesn't like, her parents' rules. Her mom is played by that of Julie Boland, who's best known for like Modern Family and stuff. And so her mom, Pam, is overly protective. See, her mom used to have a group of friends growing up, and they was known as the Mollies. Why? Because every Halloween they would dress up like Molly Ringwald. And so like they were like the it group, the mean girls, And so, cause they're based on the Heathers. And so like at some point in time, somebody went on a killing spree but only killed her two best friends. And the person is dubbed the Sweet 16 Killer. And so ever since she's been 16 years old and she survived the killings, because there was only two, she's been overly paranoid. She's taken martial art classes. She is prepared with a gun hidden in the house. And so, like, she keeps telling her daughter, you shouldn't be out late at night. You shouldn't be going to this party, blah, blah. What if somebody tries to kill you, like they did my best friends, and blah, blah, stuff like that, right? But of course, her daughter doesn't want to listen to her and goes anyway. And so, like, when her daughter leaves and the husband drives her to the party and everything, or her friend's house or something like that, all of a sudden she gets attacked by that of the Sweet 16 Killer. And the Sweet 16 Killer, has this really goofy mask. I don't know who exactly it's supposed to be. Probably like James Dean or something like that. And they're called that because they kill 16-year-olds and they stab them 16 times. So why are they going after her 30, 40 something years later, right? Yeah, about 30 years later, because it's set in, they go back in time, it's the 1980s. And it's a funny bit where when the killer busts through the house and tries to stab her, she wrestles him to the ground. Then she, like when the martial arts kind of way, then she goes into like her safe and pull out her gun, and she's all like, I've been scared for ever since I was 16 years old. You don't think I'll be prepared? I was not expecting that at all. But then the killer is able to get the gun away from her, and she scares the killer off by pulling out like a butcher knife, right? And so after that, I think she calls like 911, and it's when she calls 911, the killer comes back into the house and stabs her 16 times, killing her and stuff. So when it comes to that of the Sweet 16 Killer, nobody knows who this person is. And this person literally only killed twice 30 years ago and has stopped. And so there's this one dude who does like a podcast and stuff. And so that's how most people know about like the legend, because most people have forgotten about this. Jamie is upset and everything and finds a note left by the killer, meaning that her mom was going to be next. So this is one part of the movie that gets kind of odd. Like, so people, kids at school are just kind of like looking at her, her mom died and stuff like that. But then all of a sudden, she goes and like, talks to her best friend, like Amelia. And so like, this is where the most random thing happens. She's just talking about, oh, did you get your time machine working and everything? I'm like, wait, what? There's no introduction to this girl. There's no like build up in any kind of way. There's no indication she's like super smart and built like a time machine and everything. But she built it for like the science fair. And her mom's supposed to be really smart as well. And this is how she learned it. I'm totally cool with her being smart and building a time machine, but let there be some build-up, not just like the moment we see her like, hey, did your time machine get fixed yet? Or is it working yet? It's just there's no build-up whatsoever. It just like randomly comes out her mouth and it's just like, huh? And so like, even in like Back to the Future, it randomly comes up too, because we don't know that the car is actually a time machine. But there's some indication that like there's gonna be time travel in the movie because it's in the title. And also when you go to Doc Brown's house, there's tons of gadgets and things he invented and stuff that lets you know that, okay, well, yeah, this dude could totally build like a time machine. But here it's just like the most random thing ever. And so like she's trying to figure out like how to get it to work, but she can't. And like I said before, she put it in a phone booth. Well, at some point in time, at this like carnival type thing, what's her name? Jamie is there and she gets attacked by the killer. And so when the killer is trying to slash and gash her, the killer ends up stabbing like the machine, the controls. the steel blade is the metal conductor that it needs for these two wires and stuff. And it actually gets the time machine working. She kicks the killer out and she time travels and stuff. And so, like, when she time travel, like the phone booth leaves the present and it goes back into the past. And now she's in the 1980s and stuff. And she is just like, oh my God. But then she's kind of like, well, hold up. If I can prevent those two like killings in the past, then my mom will survive the future because I will be able to identify the killer and everything. So this is what she does. She goes to the police. They're like so incompetent, they don't believe her or nothing like that. So she just infiltrates like the school that like her mom went to, her old high school and stuff. And but then it's like weird because it's kind of like, remember I said Jamie's your typical teenager, doesn't like doing what the parents say and stuff like that. The moment she's back in the 1980s, for some reason, all of a sudden now she's like super progressive and everything, and like very Gen Z. Like she gets offended by like everything she sees and stuff because it's the 1980s, much different from 2023. And and so like there's a lot of offensive stuff back in the day. Like, the school they went to, the mascot used to be that of a Native American boy with red skin and like a feather in his head and stuff like that, which is super offensive. And I remember one of my schools I went to had that too, and I didn't even think of it back in the 90s that wow, this really is offensive and stuff. I think it's still the same mascot. But it's just weird that she's like super progressive now because you never got no indication of that in the present day. And it's totally fine for her to be that way, but it's like her personality completely changed when she went back into the past and stuff. Now, when she's in the past, she's realizing that, wow, like not only is the school offensive, but they have like dodgeball. And of course, in most schools, dodgeball is banned now. It wasn't when I went, but it was never a PE requirement. It was just something me and my friends did, like to have fun and stuff. But like back in those days, they made you do that at school. And most people don't like that today because they say it can really hurt and injure people, especially if you hit them in the head with that giant rubber ball. And she doesn't like the short shorts for PE or nothing like that. So it's a nice cultural shock for her to see how the world is different. I've always said I would love it. They would have make a movie to where like, say you have like the most ghettoest like black kid in like, the world, right? Like they wear baggy jeans, they use like the N-word and stuff like that. And what if they got sent back in time in slavery days and it really taught them to value their race and to stop using that word? And so, yeah. And so, like, while she here, she remembers that, wait a minute, my best friend, mom, is also a scientist. All I gotta do is find her and, like, explain it to her. And so she does. And of course, like, the mom, who's a teenager now, she's like, oh, yeah, I totally saw, like, Back to the Future and I totally get it and stuff like that. And because the cops, they're like, yeah, we saw it, but oh, there's no such thing as time travel. So her mother, the best friend mother, is going to like, create a time machine and send her back to like the present. All while Jamie is trying to prevent like these murders and stuff. But it's gonna be a little hard because one thing she did not realize is that her mom is a total bee. And not only is she a bee, but she's the queen bee at that. So her mother, Lauren, is trying to figure out what went wrong with the original time machine to where it did not want to work. And they, like I said before, they realized that, the knife and stuff like that. By the way, I love young Lauren's hair. And so like there is like, well, oh yeah, the mother. So Jamie's mom, Pam, is played by that of Olivia Holt back in the 80s. And I'm a huge Olivia Holt fan, right? And so, like, she has a clique, and I recognize one of the people in her little girl group. Leanna Liberatum, she plays that of Tiffany. And so I remember her from Light as a Feather. She was one of the killers and one of the Scream movies and stuff. And so, like, the rest of the clique is that of Marissa and what's her name? Is it Heather? Um, let's see, it's Marissa and yeah, Heather. And so, like, they have a party at Tiffany's place. So, Jamie tries to infiltrate the party, but she, like, tries to get in. And then when she kind of like embarrasses herself, she gets kicked out. And they have their friend Randy throw her out. And then there's a nasty part where he just burps for a long time in her face. So then she is trying, okay, and Randy, in the future, he's like a dumb-witted coach, right? And he plays a dumb-witted, like, jock and also a bully. And so, like, um, or she gets in with the help of Doug. So Doug in the past is like this nerdy teenage boy, right, who gets bullied a lot. And in the future, he's actually the principal and stuff. And so when she gets in the second time, they just let her stay for whatever reason, right? And so, like, she's trying to prevent the killing of Tiffany. Tiffany's supposed to die in the garage. But, like, Tiffany ends up this time dying in like her mother's room or the parents' room in the waterbed and stuff, which just explains if you change the past, it has a ripple effect and changes the present. So now the murder has been in like the bedroom, and like Jamie could not like stop it. Now they also have like a side friend along with, like I said, Randy and everything. The side friend, oh, I can't even think of her name right now. Um, I can't remember, but she plays like a cop in like the future, and she's like a hard-nosed cop, right? And so, like, she is basically telling Pam that, I'm psychic and everything, and I can see the future. That's how I know Tiffany was gonna die, and, and not telling her she's really from like the future and stuff. And so, like, so she's all like, I have to prevent the rest of y'all deaths and like, crap like that. And so she pretty much just hangs out with them wherever they go, and especially when Marissa thinks they're going to a condominium, but really it's a cabin in the woods. This really scares Jamie because she knows that she knows that Marissa is supposed to die in a cabin in the woods. Now we also meet Blake, and he is like, the love interest and also that of Jamie's father. In the future, he's played by Lachlan Morrow. And I remember this dude from like Scary Movie and Riverdale and a bunch of other stuff, right? And so when they're in the cabin in the woods, okay, so when they're in the cabin in the woods and everything, it was only just supposed to be like that of Jamie, Pam, Heather, and Marissa. But they invited that of Randy, Blake, and Cara. That's her name, Cara. Now, here's the thing about Jamie. They try to make her a little bit too impervious, like too strong, like impenetrable and everything. See, Cara is a pothead in the past. In the future, she's a hard-nosed cop, like her father. And so she brings brownies that have weed in them, right? Now, as aware of everything like Janie is, she has no idea that these brownies could be laced with weed. And so everybody at the party is high, and even she had some. She says she's had 5 brownies, but it's not affecting her in any way. She says she doesn't understand why the weed is not affecting her. So I don't understand it. Everybody else is high, but suddenly she has like what, a stomach made of gold or steel or something like that. She should be affected, especially after eating 5 and everything. She should be pretty much past the freak out and everything. But she's not. And it's funny that she doesn't even get the term, oh, I got brownies at this little secret party we're having. Like that's a huge, and like the first time I saw it, I'm like, I don't even do drugs. And even I knew that there were gonna be weed in the brownies and everything. And with her being so overly progressive and like Gen Z and everything, she should have picked that up. And like when I say like this before, she's overly progressive and like in modern day, like she, like I said, like okay, when Randy, before he threw her out, I think he like shoved her or something like that. And she's all like, inappropriate touch, inappropriate touch, inappropriate touch. He didn't touch her private area. He just shoved her on the shoulder and everything and made her like get out. And I'm just kind of like, that whole inappropriate touch, inappropriate touch. I'm all like, that is so corny and everything. Who talks like that? I get it, it's a teaching lesson and you can teach it, but just because he touched her and pushed her doesn't mean it's inappropriate touch. And if you're gonna teach it, you gotta teach, okay, if somebody touch your private areas, that's inappropriate touch. Touching your shoulder and stuff like that is not. And so now I'm finna get into what really pisses me off about the diversity in the movie. Okay, so this movie wants to label itself as being very progressive, very diverse, very woke. I'm totally cool with that. I'm totally cool with Pam having like, friends that are like people of color. However, what doesn't make no sense is this. They literally do the person of color best friend trope. That is not progressive. That is something people of color hate, especially blacks. So Jamie, of course, is white, right? And her best friend in the entirety of the movie is Amelia, who happens to be black. There is the black friend trope right there, but now it's played twice because when she goes back into the past, the only person she really befriends that knows her true identity and stuff is that of Lauren, the mother of Amelia, and she is also black. And if you're trying to be progressive, you don't do the whole black best friend thing. That's what Kerry Washington says she will never do again. She will never play the black best friend in a role because when your movie is looking for diversity and you don't want to have anything for them to do, you just make them the best friend. Now, I do like the fact that they made the 2 black girls super smart with time travel and stuff. That's cool. But then this is more of a problem. Now you have Pam and her best friend group. Her best friends are Tiffany, Marissa, and Heather. All are people of color. Tiffany is Italian, Heather is Hispanic, and Marissa is Asian. And so then when you see that your friends are literally every color of the rainbow, it's just kind of like, you sure you're not checking off a list? And I think they are. And so that's like forced diversity. It's cool to have friends of different colors and races. It's cool to have a movie that's mixed up. But it's like, when you do something blatantly like that, it's pretty obvious. Because you gotta stop and think about it. What white girl in the 80s who's like the queen bee and have a group of best friends are all gonna be people of color and not one single white person in the group? That does not happen, especially in the 80s. And the only white person she interacts with is the love interest of Blake. And he's not even really a friend. He's just this dude she likes that was dating somebody else. And then I guess he dumped the other girl for her or cheated or something like that. And then you gotta think about Carr and Randy, the side friends. And it gets even worse because, okay, Randy is black and Kara is Asian, and they're not really part of the like the main group, like the best friend circle group. They're like side friends, but they have tasks. Randy's whole task in the group is to be like the bodyguard. So when Tiffany wanted somebody thrown out the party, he literally threw them out the party. And then Kara's main purpose is to supply drugs for them. And so it's kind of like, oh, okay, so your other friends who are also people of color are just there to do things for you. But oh wait, this movie's supposed to be diverse. You know what I'm saying? So how is this movie really like, it's a step forward in diversity for casting these people of color, but the roles that they have in the movie are still tropes that people of color hate. You still got the best friends that are people of color, no matter what color they are. Then you have the two side friends who are also people of color, but they're there to work for you. I thought this movie's supposed to be diverse and everything, right? And so, and of course, who is the main girl, the final girl? The white girl and everything. And I'm just kind of like, seriously. It's like they're trying to come off as being so progressive and so diverse, but they're still doing offensive tropes and everything. Just because you would cast a person of color in a role, don't mean you have to give them the stereotypical role and everything. And why did the girl of color had to be the drug supplier? Why did like the black friend have to be like, the idiot jock who's like a bodyguard and stuff? And then you ask yourself, how is Kara and Randy fit into the group when, like, he's not really friends with Blake? Yeah, he does hook up with that of like Marissa at one point, but that's only because they're horny and high and everything. And because you don't see Kara really hang out with the group later on. And then, so yeah, like that's the problem I have with this movie trying to be diverse, but it's Hollywood's check off list of being diverse, and I don't like that. Like, if you really wanted to get some brownie points for me, brownies of all things, I would have made one of the girls of color, like the final girl, and made her Jamie and stuff. But whatever, Oh, and I completely forgot. So before I go to the next topic, both Amelia and Lauren, the two best like black friends, are actually barely in the movie. They pop in, they pop out. It makes sense for Amelia because she's in the future. But as for Lauren, Lauren is barely there. And so like you don't even get to see her really like, fix the time machine all that much, or see how like, this works with that, because it's mostly all done off screen. So not only is it the best black friend trope, but like she's barely in the movie. Oh wait, I thought this movie was supposed to be diverse and everything. So she's unable to prevent the murder, but the murder that happens actually is not Marissa, it's now Heather. So once again, she is changing like the future and stuff, right? Now, one cool element that this movie does that like I like that Back to the Future didn't is that we get to see the events change in the future. So we have Amelia, and she's now hanging out with a guy named Chris. Chris is the podcast dude. And so we get to see things like posters change, and they're aware that changes are made from the past. And that's going to be a problem in this movie when you get to the end. I'll explain to that later. So they're very aware that the past is being changed. He's all like, oh, wait, this person was supposed to die at this part. And then, no, they died at this location. And this person was supposed to die second. But no, the other person died and stuff like that. So she's very close to like figuring out the clue. Because she left them like a note. She left what's her name, Amelia, a note, but she didn't say exactly how to fix the time machine thing. Basically, she just gave her a clue. And so because the killer is still in the future and stuff. So now, Marissa's supposed to be the last person to be killed. So they're trying their best to prevent her from being killed. Now, when it comes to who the killer is, I kind of suspected who it might be. They gave a couple of red herrings. They tried to set up Cara by how, oh, where were you when Heather was getting killed? So she gets pissed and she leaves the group, right? And she doesn't reappear until like the very end, dressed like the Grim Reaper, where she kills the actual killer. And she does it with like a real weapon, and they're all like, your toy weapon's real? She's like, of course, my dad's a cop. And then she also has a gun. But anyway, so I've been wondering who could the killer be, right? It sounds like, okay, it's not the group of friends because they're always around when somebody's getting killed. So it has to be one of the other side characters in the movie. And so there is like this guy named Lurch, who is the brother of Tiffany. Now Lurch is just a dopey guy who they just try to pin it on because he's just creepy. But he's actually a nice guy. So that leaves like only a couple of people left. I'm all like, no, it can't be, right? I'm all like, why he gotta be black? It's Doug. I'm all like, this makes sense because he got picked on and he's like a nice guy and he's barely around in the movie. And so it had to be him, and it was. And so like he tries to kill Marissa, but he's unable to. And like I said before, Cara killed him with her weapon. And so we don't get a confession from him. So it's like, why? Why did he do this for? And why did he wait 30 years just to kill that of like Pam? It doesn't make sense. And I'm all like, is he the real killer or is there like a second? And so like the girl, like, what's her name? What's her name? Marissa. She kind of figures out why he might have want to do this and stuff. Now, they mentioned in the past there was a girl named Trish, and they used to call her Fat. And so Jamie's really upset that, like, her mom would call somebody, like, overweight and stuff like that, right? But it gets worse. Trish ended up dying in a car accident. See, they thought she slept with the coach. So, like, they got her drunk and tried to get her to confess, but she didn't. So they just let her drive and leave the party. And she drove drunk and got in a car accident. Jamie is furious that her mom would do something like this. But here's the thing. Pam was never at the party and got Trish drunk. She was just home because she didn't want to go because she hates Trish. And so it was only Marissa and Heather and Tiffany who got Trish drunk and caused that accident. This caused Doug to want revenge because he was secretly dating Trish. And so, like, but one of the girls knew that. And so this explains his motive as to why he killed those three and only those three. And why he killed them 16 times because they were all 16. And this is why he left Pam alone. But wait, didn't he kill Pam in the future? And in the future, he's like really nice. And that's because after getting his revenge, he became the principal, became a really nice guy. Then all of a sudden, we see the Sweet 16 killer kill that of like Marissa. And as everybody's running, he also kills a news anchor. Now, when he killed this news anchor, I'm just like, well, hold up. This is Chris's father who's a news anchor. I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me, right? So one more thing about Doug being a killer. I just rewatched the movie for a second time, and it's something I completely missed. Now, when I watched it the first time, I always suspected Doug, because I'm kind of like, there aren't that many people in the movie. He's really nice, but he got picked on and stuff. But then there's something in the very beginning of the movie after Pam dies and he's talking to Jamie as an adult. And he keeps telling her, oh, your mom was one of my good friends. She was always so sweet and kind to me when we was in high school. And then I'm thinking to myself, well, hold up. We saw how they interacted with each other in high school. He got bullied by her entire friend group. So I'm all like, he was lying that entire time. And it completely slipped my mind the first time I watched it. It's revealed that Chris is the second killer, but it's not teenage Chris, it's adult Chris. Why? Because the podcast is the only thing that makes him relevant. And like most people and nowadays, they quit their job and they do the internet business, being podcasters, YouTubers, crap like that, TikTokers, you know what I'm saying. And so, like, he said that after those three killings, Doug stopped. Now, he had no idea it was Doug until, like, it was revealed in the future, and he killed Amelia and took her time machine to the past. Now, he killed Pam in the future because he wanted to stay relevant. He wanted these killings to stay relevant because after a while, people just didn't care about his podcast no more or the Sweet 16 killer. So by killing Pam, it restarted this whole the killer's still around type thing. So he's the one who left a note in their house and tricked that of Jamie. But he had no idea of time travel until he overheard Amelia and Jamie like talking and stuff. And so, like, he decides he's gonna go back in the past and kill, the last remaining girl, keeping the legacy, like, keep on going so he can be immortal like Mike Myers and stuff. And he killed his dad only because his dad never had much time for him. But we never see this in the movie, so like I said, this movie isn't perfect because it's rushed. So of course they have a huge like fight in the time machine and everything, and she ends up killing him and she goes back to like the present. While in the present, her mom is alive. But here's the problem with the time travel rule. Remember I said we got to see the present as things kept changing? Well, her mom and dad have no idea that the girl they was interacting with in the past happens to be their daughter in the future. But yet, Lauren, the older Lauren, knows exactly who Jamie is and stuff. And she wrote her a book explaining all the details that happened in the 30 years that, what's her name, time travel. Oh, by the way, her name's not Jamie no more. It's Colette now. Why? Because her parents were horny teenagers and changed the timeline and had another Jamie, a 40-something or 30 or he's like a middle-aged 30-something-year-old man. And so they named him Jamie, and since she was the second child, they named her Colette. It would have been more interesting. They never made her, period. And you know what I'm saying? That would have had more stakes instead of this happy bow type ending. And we find out that, since teenage Doug died in the past, he never became the principal. And so Randy, after getting, I think he got beat up, I think, by Jamie in the past. And so like he has now become a good guy and he is now the principal. As for Chris, he's studying Buddhism or something like that at like a monastery or something like that. But Lauren says she keeps tabs on him to make sure he isn't going to go around and try to kill nobody. Which doesn't make no sense because like, he just has no reason to. Well, no, because he wanted to keep the thing alive, but he doesn't do a podcast. I don't know what changed him to do that. They don't explain. So it's like the ending is kind of just like a little too loose. It's kind of like, why didn't her parents recognize her if Lauren can recognize her? Why hasn't what's his name? Chris started up killing and everything and doing the podcast. Like, what prevented him from doing that? And not only that, but it's kind of like, okay, those three girls still ended up dead and she couldn't even prevent their murders. So with that said, having a time machine, why didn't she just go back into the past and prevent their murders or prevent Trish from ever dying? That would have been a more satisfying ending instead of just leaving it up in the air and changing her first name and stuff. There's no sequel. There probably never will be a sequel, but it would be nice if like she just would have went back into the past, prevented Trish from dying, then it would have prevented all them other girls from dying. And she could have even, like, gave her mom some pointers on being a nice person or just something, like, you know what I'm saying? Because either way, her mom still is the same as that person she was, you know what I'm saying? And it's just weird she doesn't recognize her at all. And neither does, like, the father. But like I said before, this is a really cool movie and everything. You should really check it out on Amazon Prime. Now, wasn't that spooky? Alright, well, I shall talk to y'all later. Bye.